I'm not crazy. Keep telling yourself, I'm not crazy. I may be soon, but not now. I live alone in my apartment. I always preferred isolation, though that might not be the case right now. Wait, did you hear that? You heard the singing, right? Don't deny it. You heard it. I'll tell you what happened. Please believe me. It was only a week ago. That's when this mess started. You'll find out. You'll find out. Okay, I gotta calm down. I get it. Okay, Tuesday. Yes, it was Tuesday. Only 3 days after my college had ended. What was I doing? Oh yeah, I was searching for job listings on my laptop when this first started. I didn't want to work 2 jobs, but I was starting to run a bit low on cash. The searching process was boring. I'm not one of those people who just get enthusiastic about finding a new job, but that's not the point. At some point, I started to get a little drowsy. I'm sure I was just about to go out, if it wasn't for a creak upstairs. I dragged myself up the stairs and into my room. Nothing. Not a thing in sight. I figured that it was probably just a rat. I've had a few pest problems before, so this seemed like a possibility. I walked back down to the kitchen and turned my laptop back on. 2 more hours passed, and I was really considering a job at a fast food place at this point. So, I punched in a few places. 30 minutes later, I found a place that looked quite promising. This site had a clean look to it, and it was also one of those sites that had pictures of employees smiling. After admiring the site, I clicked on the careers link, and I could have sworn that for a split second, one of the employees' faces was missing. The careers page showed the same kind of friendliness displayed throughout the rest of the site. There was even an introductory video on the page. I clicked on it and I was greeted with a video of a little girl smiling at me. The video seemed buff for a moment. At least that's what I thought. The girl's face seemed to be decaying very slowly. The colour started to fade from her hair. She was still smiling, but her face had become an ugly shade of yellow and seemed to be peeling at her hairline. Blood ran from her eyes as they turned a crimson red. Her face was peeling in multiple areas now, but she kept smiling, as if this wasn't affecting her at all. Her face snapped to the left of her head and was now hanging to the right side of her head by a single strip of flesh. Her head was now bleeding profusely, and the crimson water flooded from the hanging face's mouth and eye sockets. Her face eventually slid off and fell with the last drop of blood, revealing the decaying muscle underneath. Her mouth started to move, uttering something that I couldn't make out. Her mouth kept moving until suddenly her jaw split. The screen flickered a bit and the video ended. I kept telling myself that this wasn't real as I clicked on the video again, just hoping that it wouldn't just show what I just saw. It didn't. At this point, I just assumed I was in serious need of some sleep. The job hunting would continue tomorrow, after I got some much needed shut-eye. I lay in my bed. I kept repeating that I just had a long day and was in need of sleep. I couldn't close my eyes, as if I was wide awake. I just stared at my ceiling. I started humming a song. I stopped. I could have sworn that there were 2 voices humming. There's no such thing as pure silence, even if there are no sounds present. There's still a faint ringing in your ear caused by passing air. That wasn't the case. The room was absolutely silent. Not a sound. I closed my eyes, just hoping the night would be over quickly. I heard a faint sound before I finally fell asleep. It sounded like singing. I woke up downstairs, which was odd considering I don't sleepwalk. It was 3 o'clock in the afternoon. A majority of my day was already gone. I turned on my laptop and resumed the search. 3 applications later, I was starting to get bored again. I looked out the window between the next few applications. After 3 or 4 more applications, I looked out the window again. I didn't see my reflection though. In its place was a little boy, covering his face with his hands. Green liquid seemed to be dripping from his face. He moved his hands, showing rotting muscle swarmed with flies and oozing green liquid. His eyes focused on me, and his jaw started moving. Chunks of meat would fall off of his face with each movement. I was sure my eyes were just playing tricks on me, so I rubbed my eyes and blinked a few times. He was gone. My reflection sat where it should be. No, not just resuming some job search. I needed some help. I called up Dr. Ather, my therapist, something I know I should have done sooner, and arranged an appointment. I got slotted in at 6 o'clock. It started raining. Perfect. What else could possibly go wrong? My inexperienced self said. 10 minutes early. I sat in the waiting room for 20 minutes, nervously bouncing my leg. It was soon my turn. The room was not like those stereotypical therapy rooms. It didn't have a chair that's so commonly found in these kinds of places. No degree hanging from the walls, in fact. Nothing was hanging. The walls were white and didn't appear to age well. The room was mainly empty, with 2 chairs sitting in the middle of the room. Dr. Ather welcomed me into the room as we sat down. I told him everything I'd been experiencing. He sat there, unfazed by everything that came out of my mouth. He occasionally nodded, but that was the extent of it. He just had this look as if he'd heard it all before. I finished my story, and he began to write something on his clipboard. I stared at the ceiling, while the sound of his pen on paper rang in my ears. "What are you going to do when he comes for you?" Dr. Ather said suddenly. I looked over at him. He hadn't even looked up from his clipboard. "What?" I asked. He looked up. A look of confusion stretched across his face. "What did you just say?" I asked him. "I didn't say anything," he replied. He tilted his head. "You sure you've been getting enough sleep?" I quickly nodded, but at this point I wasn't so sure anymore. Dr. Ather came to the conclusion that these visions, as he called them, were just a result of the stress caused by the job search. I thanked Dr. Ather and walked out the room. It was still raining outside, harder than before. My ears were flooded with a pitter-patter of raindrops hitting the street. As I began to walk to my car, I thought I heard something. No, I know I began to hear something between each drop. Like a whisper, a song, something. I need to finish. I need to stay calm. I arrived back at my apartment. I was tired again. I walked into my room and got ready to go to sleep. It wasn't that late, but I just wanted to believe that lack of sleep was the cause of all these problems. I got into my pajamas and crawled into bed. I flicked off the light switch and tried to sleep. I couldn't sleep though. That night, now I know that's the night when he first appeared. As the night went on, I started to notice that a corner of my room appeared to be getting darker, like a growing shadow loomed over it. My eyes focused on it for hours as it continued to grow darker. I couldn't stay awake though. I started to drift into sleep. As I finally drifted into unconsciousness, I saw something in the shadow shine, and I heard what I assumed to be singing. I awoke in the middle of the night. I tried to go back to sleep. I had no luck. I sat up on my bed. The dark shadow in the corner of the room was gone. I walked downstairs thinking I was just hungry. I opened up the fridge and scanned its contents. I heard someone laugh. A child laugh. I slowly turned my head, and on the kitchen counter sat a little girl. Her back was facing me. She seemed oddly familiar. She turned her head, and what I saw made me puke. The skin on her face was missing. Remains of her flesh hung from the eye sockets. The exposed muscle was twisted and mangled into wet bunches. She lowered her jaw. What are you going to do when he comes for you?" She sang in a voice that sounded as if her vocal cords had been twisted and torn. She repeated her words over and over again. I began to hear another voice singing this as well, deeper, but still maintaining the screechiness of the first voice. As I covered my ears, I looked around the room for the source, but no one was in the room but me and the girl. A sick feeling came over me as I slowly raised my chin. There he was, right there on the ceiling. There was a body, appearing to be plastered to the ceiling by blood and flesh. It was a lanky man, wearing a faded blue coat and torn grey pants. His skin was white, with patches of muscle exposed and scattered all over his body. His hair appeared to be burned off. His face, though. There aren't enough words to describe what his face was. His skin had appeared to be torn off as well, but much more strips of flesh remained and hung from the irritated looking muscle. Stitching ran across the red tissue, with dark green ooze dripping between the seams. Jagged black teeth filled his mouth. His eyes, his blank, emotionless eyes, stared directly into mine. The room was still for about 2 minutes. The man slowly lowered from the ceiling. His long black tongue ripped a strip of flesh from his head, and he began to chew it, never breaking eye contact with me. His jaw making a hideous crunching sound with each movement. He lay his cold fingers upon my face. They felt like dry ice against my skin. His fingers ran down my cheek. "I'm here." Everything went black. I awoke in the hospital, bandages tightly wrapped around my head feeling like it was slowly burning. My arms and legs were in restraints. I screamed for the doctor and demanded to know what happened. The doctor told me that the people next door heard me scream, and when they tried to enter my apartment, they saw me cutting my own face off with a kitchen knife. He then proceeded to tell me that I would be put in an institution for treatment. I pleaded with him, told him that that's not what happened. I know that's not what happened. He wouldn't listen though. He thought I was crazy. I'm not crazy. I'm not. Believe me, please. Please realize that I'm not crazy. That thing is out there. Still out there. And people need to know about him. People need to find him and put him away. People need to know. Please. Believe me. For your own sake. Thanks for sticking around to the end. And if you enjoyed today's story, make sure to leave a like. And if you want more like it, make sure to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss a story. If you need more now, why not check out my Creepypasta playlist? I'll leave that on this card, and I'll catch you in the next story.